What is it when a block is strongly powered? You may have heard the term or have a basic understanding, but today I want to cover the many aspects of that every redstoner needs to understand. I will start with what it's not. It has no relation to redstone power levels, also known as signal strength. This is the case when power can have several levels, from 15 down to 0, and when you have lines of redstone dust, this power level is reduced as it travels along the line. Signal strength has no relation to strong power. The similar terms may have some people confused. For a block to become strongly powered, there are two criteria. The block must be conductive, and it must have redstone power of 1 or above feeding directly into it. When a block is strongly powered, it will indirectly pass power onto the adjacent blocks, but these blocks will become weakly powered. Likewise, when a non-conductive block is powered directly, it will only receive weak power. First, we can review which blocks are conductive. These are more commonly known as solid, opaque or non-transparent blocks, because it's a common rule that any blocks that are not whole or have some transparent pixels are non-conductive. However, there are some exceptions to this rule. I can very simply demonstrate this by connecting a lever and a redstone lamp. Most solid blocks are conductive. Non-conductive transparent blocks come in two categories. First, there are whole blocks, but some pixels are either transparent or semi-transparent. This includes glass, stained glass, leaves and copper grates. Second, there are blocks which do not use the standard full cube model. Some examples are stairs, slabs, walls, scaffolding and composters. We'll take a few moments to run through some notable details. Here you can see that the slime block is conductive despite it being somewhat transparent, and this ability is useful for some redstone contraptions. Similarly to slime, honey blocks are also conductive, but this only applies to Minecraft bedrock. In Java, they are non-conductive. Alongside these, we have mangrove roots and spawners that are also conductive despite their appearance. I have confirmed that this is the case for both Java and Bedrock, so perhaps this is intentional for some reason. As I mentioned earlier, slabs are non-conductive, regardless of it being a bottom or top slab. But a double slab is conductive, which does seem logical. But conversely, a block made of 8 layers of snow is non-conductive, despite being full, and despite a natural snow block being conductive, although they look identical. Blocks that are almost full but not quite, such as the path block, are non-conductive. Mud blocks and soul sand react as if they're not a full block, but their models do use the full cube. These are conductive. Shulker boxes are conductive when closed, but non-conductive when open. Again, this feels logical, but conversely, pistons are always non-conductive. You may argue that when they are powered, then they lose their standard cube shape, so this seems correct. But note, this does still apply if the piston is prevented from pushing. Finally, some blocks are non-conductive despite using full solid blocks, glowstone, observers and copper bulbs. Then we have another Java bedrock discrepancy. Jukeboxes are also non-conductive, but in Minecraft bedrock only. As a redstoner, you will find it crucial to remember which redstone blocks are conductive, which are not, and which are neither because they constantly create their own power. To recap, if I power this conductive block directly, then it becomes strongly powered and all adjacent blocks become indirectly powered. This includes all 4 sides, top and bottom. But note that this indirect power is weak and cannot transfer to another block or space. The only block types that benefit from this weak power are redstone consumer blocks, also known as redstone mechanisms. That is, any block that reacts to redstone power. For example, redstone lamps, pistons, repeaters, doors, bells and shelves. Now obviously you could power any redstone consumer block directly, but having it indirectly powered is a great way to hide the redstone behind walls. In addition, if you are powering a conductive redstone block, then this will indirectly power any blocks adjacent to it. This is obvious when using a redstone lamp. If you have a series of lamps and only want to power them individually, then it's best to power them indirectly with weak power. Droppers and dispensers have the same problem, but the effect can be less obvious, so be careful how you power them. Remember that some redstone blocks are non-conductive, and applying power directly to them will not give them strong power. Instead, they are weakly powered and will not pass power onto adjacent blocks. As a small side note, applying weak power to any block that does not react to redstone power will do absolutely nothing for it. There is no way to get a reaction from this block or detect that it has weak power. Similarly, applying direct power to a non-conductive block does nothing. So, to summarise the key points so far, redstone consumer blocks can be powered directly or indirectly, but not through non-conductive blocks. Next, we shall look into redstone producers, blocks that create a redstone signal. Typically, producers will apply strong power to two blocks, the block it is mounted on, and its own block space. Let's take the lever for an example. When I power this on, it directly powers the redstone lamp behind it. I can confirm it's getting strong power by adding more lamps around it. As I said, the block space the lever is occupying is also getting strong power. I can put more lamps around the lever and they become lit. This will explain why we can power redstone dust placed next to a lever. It is getting indirectly powered by the lever itself. It also explains this behaviour where the lamp is being powered from the top end of a lever. Buttons, pressure plates, tripwire hooks, lightning rods and detector rails all have the same behaviour as the levers. Both their own block area and the one they are mounted onto will become strongly powered. Again, this explains why we can place a pressure plate in front of a door and it automatically opens the door. The plate is applying weak power to the door. When a detector rail is angled, then the effect is the same as when flat. It applies strong power to the block below it. The block at the top of the slope is getting powered, but with weak power. Sculk sensors, calibrated sculk sensors, lanterns with books, and trap chests all have a very similar behaviour. They will strongly power their own block plus the one beneath them. It may be a rarely used ability, but lecterns will briefly apply strong power to the block below them as the book's page is turned. Double trap chests will apply strong power to both blocks below them, plus weak power to all adjacent blocks on both sides of the chest. Some other redstone producers only apply strong power to their own block. Redstone blocks, targets, jukeboxes, daylight detectors and inverted daylight detectors. This means that all blocks around them only receive weak power. The remaining redstone components have quite unique features, starting with observers. These will apply strong power to the block they are pointing to, i.e. the side which has the red dot and the triangular arrows are pointing towards. But they do not apply power to their own block, so do not apply indirect power to any adjacent block. In addition to them being non-conductive, this allows for a tight circuit like this, where redstone dust running over the top will have no effect on the observer's behaviour or vice versa. On the subject of observers, it's worth noting that they cannot detect any change in a normal block when it is powered or unpowered either strongly or weakly. If you need something like this behaviour in your circuit, then use a redstone component block instead. An empty dropper or dispenser works great in this case. Both redstone repeaters and comparators have a similar trait to observers. They both apply strong power to the block they are pointing towards and do not apply strong power to their own block. This allows for a tight circuit like this where the block they are mounted onto can be strongly powered without affecting them, or vice versa. In addition, both repeaters and comparators will activate when a strongly powered block is used as their input. For the repeater, this always creates an output level of 15, but the comparator outputs the same power level that was feeding into the block. To demonstrate, these pairs of circuits are practically identical. A repeater or comparator can be used to strongly power a block, which passes power to the redstone dust on the other side, or it can be used to read the strong power from this block. We'll come back to redstone dust, but first we'll take a look at redstone torches. Torches apply strong power to the block above them, plus strong power to their own block space, which in turn applies weak power to all blocks around them, but with one exception. They do not apply power to the block they are mounted onto. Instead, they read power from this block. If this block is strongly powered, then the torch powers off. If this block is unpowered or has weak power, then the torch is on. This is why redstone torches are commonly used as an inverter, converting a powered signal to an unpowered signal and vice versa. Finally, we come to redstone dust. This has such a unique behaviour that it almost requires its own chapter. There are two methods that redstone dust can apply strong power to blocks. The first is when a line of dust is pointing to a conductive block and that dust is powered. If the line passes a block but does not point to it, then it does not power it. The second is that redstone dust applies strong power to every block it is placed upon. This is why you may see circuits where the dust is placed on non-conductive blocks such as glass. This prevents the blocks from being strongly powered and interfering with any redstone components below them. Generally, redstone dust is powered when it occupies any block space that is either strongly or weakly powered. In other words, it can be directly powered by a redstone producer, or when it is to the side, above or below a strongly powered block. However, it cannot be powered by a block that is strongly powered by other redstone dust. To review, if we strongly power a block using any redstone producer or connector, then this block can be used to power redstone dust. Likewise, we can strongly power a block using redstone dust, and this block can be used to power a redstone consumer or connector. But if we strongly power a block using redstone dust, then it will not power other dust. Redstone dust can only pass power to other dust when placed directly or when stepping up and down. Unlike when redstone dust is used to power a block, when the block is used to power redstone dust, the dust does not need to be pointing towards it. It will apply the power even when it doesn't appear to be connected. Now this makes the fact that redstone dust branches towards producers more of a courtesy than a necessity. The dust would still become powered if this didn't happen, but it does help to have the visual indication. Before finishing here, I will mention there are a couple of exceptions to everything I've said here. The first applies to Minecraft Bedrock only. I mentioned that a redstone torch placed onto a weakly powered block will not have any effect and that torch is always on. This is not the case if that block is a piston or sticky piston. As pistons are non-conductive, they can never be strongly powered. But even if a piston is weakly powered, then it will turn off any torch mounted onto it. And this will occur even if the piston is blocked from moving. And second applies to Minecraft Java only, and this is commonly known as quasi-connectivity. If the block above a piston, dropper or dispenser is weakly powered, then the piston, dropper or dispenser can also become powered. And this even occurs if the block above is non-conductive or even empty. If you plan to use this feature to your advantage, then I suggest finding tutorials that cover this. But if not, then you may have to configure your redstone to avoid it. Thank you and goodbye!